Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Community Tales, our monthly trip around the community to see what everybody's doing. And I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Glenn Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love talking about community stuff.
So, this is an interesting episode. So this is our recap of the July creators, but our episode for this month, I think, is going to focus around GenCon. And so GenCon is a huge gaming convention, and I think it takes place in Indianapolis. And
Correct.
Yeah, and so we have our Indianapolis, Indiana in the United States, because I know that there's people all over the world that watch the show. And we have our correspondent on the floor of GenCon. So Ted signed up. He didn't know that he was going to have to be our, he dialed in tonight and was like, I don't know what the heck is going on. So we're lucky to have him there. And so Ted, what's the deal with GenCon? How's it going? What's going on with you?
Yeah, guys, I'm coming to you live from GenCon 2019. I think they just had their 50th show last year, so this is their 51st one. It takes place in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it's pretty much the largest gaming convention in North America as far as like tabletop board gaming goes. And there's pretty much something here for everyone if you've never heard of it before or been. So all types of board games, competitive card games. There is role-playing, Dungeons & Dragons. There is True Dungeon, LARPing. I'm currently in a hallway where there are arts and crafts and ballroom dancing as well. And around the corner is a room where people are fencing.
Wow. It's everything. I actually thought it was interesting because I've never been to a gaming convention. Grant, have you ever been to a gaming convention before?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so I actually pulled up some of the information about GenCon, and Ted, you're right. It is the largest tabletop gaming convention in North America, and actually, it's one of the largest conventions in the world. It has usually over 60,000 people, and that makes that huge.
Yeah, and it gets bigger every year. That
Yeah.
number was smaller in the years past.
Right. And I always wonder, do you know why it's called GenCon?
Yeah, so this actually started out very close to my hometown. I'm from Wisconsin, and GenCon was started, stands for Geneva Convention, which is, there's a small town called Lake Geneva in Wisconsin, and that's where it started.
And do you know who started this whole thing? I'm reading about it on Wikipedia. That's why I'm like, wow, I didn't even know this. That like
it was initially founded, I think, by the publishing company TSR and Gary Gygax.
Gary Gygax. That's right.
Yeah,
and everybody knows Gary Gygax because he was the guy that invented Dungeons and Dragons. He was the original. He was the original creator of Dungeons and Dragons.
The Allfather.
Yeah,
birth of modern role-playing.
Well, I would hazard a guess that Tolkien had some influence on Gary Gygax creating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there's also miniature gaming, right? I didn't hear you say miniatures in there.
Yeah, miniature gaming, war gaming. A lot of old games too. This is the place you come to find
out of print games.
Yeah. People will meet here to play old card games that have been out of print.
Oh, wow.
Or sometimes there's also an auction hall too that runs for 3 days of the convention, where they auction off whatever people want to sell in the store, including a charity auction as well.
Oh wow. There's all sorts of things. So basically, if you're into anything tabletop, basically there's a room for you there, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place for the community to gather and find people that play your game. Like there will be people here that play your game, whatever it happens to be.
If you play that obscure game that was released only in Albania in 1983 for 2.5 players. There's probably an event for it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, don't knock it until you've tried it.
Yeah, right. So, well, that's kind of what GenCon is. So, I mean, it's huge. People come from all over the world to go to GenCon, and so that makes it kind of the thing to do. So, especially if you're into tabletop gaming. But let's get into what has brought us together here. So, how about LOTR? Has there been anything big or anything going on with LOTR? Anything LOTR related?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, Fantasy Flight has done something similar to what they did last year in 2018, where every year they always have a scenario for the game that launches during GenCon.
Mm-hmm.
And this year was a new version. It was very, very similar to what they did last year. Last year they released the Wizard's Quest.
Okay.
Which is the print-on-demand scenario that introduced the new mode of competitive play for Lord of the Rings LCG.
Right, where you kind of go through and you play like turn by turn, right? Or round by, what is it, phase by phase, right? Like, so you go through some finished phase and then and then you go to the next phase, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's a race to see which group of players, whether you do a 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2, completes the scenario first.
Okay, and you get to build your own. You get to build the opponent's encounter deck, right?
Yeah, there's rules for custom creating the deck. There's also rules for quick building,
Okay.
and you can. That's what most people do here is they follow the quick build rules. And yeah, you assemble 3 quest cards. And then the whole encounter deck, and you give that to your opponent or your opponent, your team, the opposing team, to for their heroes to play against.
The question that I have is well, first of all, have you played at all? Have you gotten a chance to play? I know that you're into other games other than this, so I know that so.
Yeah, I got a chance to play two competitive matches.
Okay.
Have either of you guys played? Have you opened up or seen Wizard's Quest?
Yes.
Or
I have seen.
Yes.
I own both of them. Unfortunately, I don't have another person to play with usually. The other guy I play with, we're going through the what's the, help me out here.
Saga campaign?
The Saga, right? We're campaigning through the Saga right now, so we really haven't had a chance to play. But there's only one other guy here that I get to play with. So, I mean, you can play it solo, but it's not as fun, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can still play a regular standard game mode with Wizard's Quest in Woodland Realm. So this year's expansion, I forgot the actual name of it now. Was I forgot the name.
That's okay.
It's but it's basically Moria themed. Fantasy Flight did release an article about it, and it's all the encounter sets have to do with like either spiders, underground, mountain locations, very similar to locations and enemies seen in the second cycle of the game.
Okay, and is that interchangeable? Like, can you use it with the Wizard Quest and the Woodland Realm, or do you have to use it separate?
So this, because this one is meant to be separate from those.
Okay.
But they are doing pretty much last year's pattern, where later in the year, Woodland Realm came out for a Fellowship event.
Right.
And then Woodland Realm was compatible with Wizard's Quest, and this is the same thing. So we'll see a new Fellowship event come out later in the year, and you can combine those scenario encounter cards with the one released at GenCon.
Has that been verified? Has that been a thing, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's confirmed.
The name of that, I don't know. I'm just making sure. The name of that, you ready? Of the scenario is called the Mines of Moria.
The simple name.
Yeah. So,
Mind blowing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They got really creative here. And
I was my competitive match was really interesting because I played two, both of which I lost.
Okay.
And the
Did
second
you bring
set
that
of
Gandalf
players
deck with you?
No, actually, I didn't bring a Gandalf deck, despite me being Gandalf guy.
Yeah, you didn't want to be Gandalf guy, I'm sure.
But I faced off against some Dwarf and Sylvan decks, and they had put in a card that was very powerful in the scenario, Ever My Heart Rises.
Okay, yep.
Which, is to refresh everyone, is a 0-cost spirit attachment that you put on a Dwarf hero. And when you travel to a mountain or underground location, you get to both ready that hero and lower your threat by 1.
Right. And
every single location, at least in the deck I put together for them, was mountain or underground.
And it's funny because Ever My Heart Rises is one of those cards that kind of lost favor for a while. Not because it's not good, but just because it's not everything's underground or mountain. So it's like you're traveling through the Mirkwood forest of Mirkwood or something, and it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, they also released a playmat, and they released an alternate art card of Lord Bilbo.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on this. Not excited that it's Lord Bilbo because it's kind of a running joke for the past 2 years how awesome Grant and I think Lord Bilbo is, but the playmat looks phenomenal, though.
Yeah, the playmat is also a Bilbo art with Gollum and Sting on it.
Yeah. Did you go to the Cardboard of the Rings event at GenCon, or were you busy doing other stuff?
I had the opportunity. I was fortunate enough to go in between playing Lord of the Rings for the competitive scenarios. And they had a real successful event. Been a lot of community members showing up to show their support. And Cardboard of the Rings, they gave away some swag.
Yeah, did you see what the swag is?
I did. Yeah, they basically made a playmat that had some new custom art by the artist Owen Weber. Mm-hmm. He titled the piece "Scouring of the Shire," and it's used to sort of track your threat and willpower. It's a playmat for the staging area, basically.
Yeah, it's got like a little counter on the bottom and some rings to keep track, like different rings, so you know what's what and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And again, I can't wait to get my hands on this. For anybody who doesn't know, you have to be a Patreon or a patron of Cardboard of the Rings for 6 months. I guess $5 a month at that level to get the swag, but I've been a patron of Cardboard of the Rings for a while now, so it's exciting. Wow, there's something going on. Somebody's excited.
Yeah, there's currently I'm in a relatively secluded pace in the convention center, but currently there's piggyback rides going on.
Oh, that's good.
In my hallway.
Well, you know, at least it's not the hotel. You wouldn't be able to get any sleep then. So,
yeah.
So for those people who have never been to GenCon, which I would guess is probably a lot. I mean, you have to be kind of diehard to go to GenCon. So, what is it like? You know, is it whatever you want to make it, or do you just always just keep going and going? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's always something. You're always doing stuff. You're always out. You're always playing. And I don't know.
Yeah, as you can see, it's very activity based. Lots of people walking around. But like I said, it's got kind of something for everyone, and they have board games for you to play here too. They have like a huge board game library, and the convention's grown so big. They in a couple of years ago, next to the convention center is Lucas Oil Stadium, and it's an indoor stadium, and they converted the whole stadium floor into gaming space for the convention.
Oh, jeez.
So I went in there this year. It was actually for the first time.
Anybody who follows American rules football, Lucas Oil Stadium is where the Indianapolis Colts play. Like, that's the field. It seats like 80,000 people or, whatever, and it's huge. So Sorry,
So it was.
I had to give that little piece out there.
No, thank you. So
Yeah.
it's a sports arena, and they converted the sports arena into gaming tables with a huge gaming library inside, and it's just a really great
Oh my gosh.
spectacle because there's not sports fans sitting in the bleachers. There's people reading rules to the new board game that they bought.
Right. That's phenomenal. Well, while we have you there, what else do you do? What do you do? Which I know that you're into X-Wing, right? So is there X-Wing games and I mean, I guess you play X-Wing, sure, but do they release new content for all the games there? Can you expect to get new content for games that expand at this place and then you play them, or?
Yeah, the biggest thing here is, so if you want to talk about general Fantasy Flight things, first I'll touch on some Lord of the Rings things. Usually, they will have something here that is new to sell. So if they're for Lord of the Rings or other product, there's a recently released piece like a new pack,
Okay.
like a new AP, or new ships for X-Wing or a new board game, they will have those here for sale. Most companies do that.
Okay.
And this year, through someone's decision, the new deluxe expansion, Shadow of the East, is now available.
It's
Local
available to the
retailers-
public, right?
Yes,
I
it's
ordered
available to
mine,
the
and
public.
mine's on the way.
Yes, but the manufacturer of Fantasy Flight, they don't actually have any for sale here, so no one at GenCon was able to purchase it. However, local retailers, this product is now out. Local retailers have been receiving copies, so somebody in the community went outside of GenCon to some local store to pick up a copy, and I actually played through the second scenario out of the new deluxe.
There's been some reports trickling in about the scenarios, and so in the Easterlings, I guess there's a lot of attachments that go on enemies in this news upcoming thing.
Yeah, I wish I could name all the scenarios. There are 3 of them in a regular deluxe.
Well, the third one is the Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom. That one I do remember because I made a joke about
Right, yep.
Indiana Jones.
Right.
And they were, I think, relatively difficult quests. I want to say I looked through the booklet, and they were 6, 5, and 7.
Okay.
For
whatever that
ratings.
means, because we all know that those ratings, somebody just looks at a dartboard.
Right.
They don't even throw the dart. They just look at the dartboard. They're like, but
We'll give that one a 7.
right, yeah. Remember, not attack. Dol Guldur, Escape from Dol Guldur is a 7, and Into Athelion is a 4. So, I mean, just say it.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I played it 3-player, and it was a good scenario. It was, I can't remember the name of it specifically, but it was very reminiscent of the Steward's Fear.
Okay.
It had very similar. It was almost like a rehash, like a redone version. I believe in the story. I didn't read much of the story from this new deluxe. But someone said that Lord Alacron was back as part of the story.
I thought you killed him off at the Morgul Vale or something. Because wasn't he like a spoiler alert? But it's been out for 5 years, right? But don't you kill him at the end? Isn't he one of the bad guys that comes? One of the bosses at the end? Yeah.
He definitely is. But I don't think he gets killed. But I don't remember the story, and maybe we can have Grant can look it up and find us an answer to what happens in the story in the scenario.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Right.
But he's back supposedly.
Somebody had said that waiting, that it's good to see old foes or something like that. I was like, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I thought that was a reference to, who is it? Alcor, or like one of those guys that's been around forever and ever as a bad guy.
Oh, sure.
I don't know, but
yeah,
I don't know enough about the lore of to know what that stuff is.
Yeah, I couldn't comment on that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do personally also played. They have some big tournaments here for all types of games. If you play Magic the Gathering, they have big Magic tournaments. They have drafting 24/7.
Right. Are there
played
like world competitions, or are those usually separate competitions off? You know what I mean? Like there's worlds for a lot of competitive card games. Would that not happen at GenCon, or?
It depends on the game manufacturer and the
Okay.
group organizing it. So Fantasy Flight, they hold their North American championships here. I played in the North American Championship for X-Wing today,
Okay.
to which I proceeded to go 0-3
Oh.
and then dropped.
I'm so sorry for that. That stinks.
I did very poorly personally.
Did you?
But-
I don't know much about the mechanics of X-wings, but was it your fault, or was it the other guy's fault? Like, were you just not getting what you needed to win, or was it the other guy was just that much better than you?
So X-Wing is a combination of two things. It's a miniature game, so movement is very critical because you move your spaceships around the board, but it's also a dice rolling game. You roll dice to attack, and you roll dice to avoid damage. So, if your opponent rolls really well, that's hard to combat. Or if you make poor choices in your maneuvers and you run into obstacles or run into other ships, you'll be put in a bad position, which is something that just sometimes happens.
Right. Isn't it funny? Like you feel pretty good going into something like that, and then you get like 0-3. That's stuck. I'm sorry, Ted. That's.
I'll get a chance to redeem myself tomorrow. They have so there's actually 7 rounds. So the way that it worked is it was 7 rounds, and then if you won 6 games, you would get into the top cut to play on Sunday, and they did that both Friday and today.
Okay.
So there's a whole tournament of people on Sunday that won 6 or 7 games.
Oof.
Right. So it gets down to be the top players.
Right. And then is the top X-wing player crowned as the North American champion, and they go on to Worlds, or
yep.
Something like
they'll
that?
win a bunch of prizes. They'll win an invitation to the Worlds event.
The rich get richer, right? Like the best player in the world gets even better, right? Because they get all the stuff that makes them better, and then.
Yeah. So what's really funny that you mentioned that is there are other board games that have world championships here.
Okay.
Steve Jackson Games prints a very popular board game called Munchkin. Have you
guys
played or heard of that?
I've heard of it. I've not played it.
Okay. Grant, have you played Munchkin at all?
I've never even heard of it.
Okay. It's a competitive board game or a card game where it's kind of like D&D, where you are a character that starts at level 1, and monsters come out of the dungeon, and you try and beat the monsters, get to level 10 before the rest of your party.
Okay.
And they hold the world championships here, and what happens to the winner is the creator of the game, Steve Jackson, will write you a personal letter stating that you are this year's world championship, and he will grant you a bonus to use for being in the game for being the world championship.
Like a special
Yes.
bonus that only you can use. Like
Yes.
That anytime you play, you can use it.
Yes. So it's a number.
I don't want to be in
where
that.
you're
I don't want to be in that guy's play group, because I'm
Yeah.
sure that.
I've actually been in a tournament with a previous world champion, and it's a numbers game. So a player will be at a bonus of +10, and they will be fighting a monster that may be a bonus rated 11, right? And the player needs to get to 11 or higher.
Okay.
And I had this player enact his previous world championship bonus to raise his level to defeat the monster by giving him a bonus. Really crazy things happen here that are really just fun and unique to the community.
That's crazy. So you play all sorts of types of games, not just card games or X-wing, but you're like me. You play all these crazy, except you play them probably more often than I do. But
and a lot of role playing too, for people that play like Dungeons and Dragons type of thing. It's just,
are you a Dungeons and Dragons guy?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That too. Any types of role playing. A lot of people here will also playtest new games coming out.
Okay.
There are people looking for feedback that are developing new board games or new role-playing games, or they're modifying existing role-playing games and trying to get playtesters to give them feedback to edit the system or the mechanics before they release it.
Is there any big announcements about the next big game that's going to be released?
Well, my news has pretty much been around Fantasy Flight stuff.
Okay.
They released or are going to release a new Marvel LCG. Was also some big news.
Yeah, I saw that. I posted in the LOTR LCG group on Facebook that because our game creator Caleb has been working with Nate French, who originally created LOTR, plus it was, I guess, a third guy, Michael somebody or other, I forget who, with all respect to the third creator, I didn't know who he was, and I guess that's going to be an LCG. I don't want to say it's going to be similar to Lord of the Rings, because I'm sure, some of the values and stuff, but it seems like you buy a core set and you go out and you're a hero and you build up your hero and you try to attack him. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, I actually was fortunate enough to demo it just today.
Oh, really?
And yep, so it's a LCG, very similar format, right, to Lord of the Rings and some of the other ones that they make. And it's a more, I'm going to say, streamlined version.
Okay.
Very similar to Lord of the Rings. You have one hero, which is going to be like Iron Man, Spider-Man, real popular Marvel character. And you'll be facing a villain. In the demo, they had a Spider-Man villain named Rhino, but they're going to have other ones, like Ultron and Thanos, right?
Right.
Anyone you can pick. And yeah, it's pretty much like you said. You get a chance to play upgrades on your heroes, and every turn, the villain attacks, and they're going to try to scheme, and you're going to be trying to prevent them from scheming and hitting them with, if you're Iron Man, you're going to shoot your pulsar blasts to try to inflict as much damage as possible every turn.
Yeah, I saw that there was one of the things the thing that I posted is that the card, it was obviously a bad guy card, whatever the bad guy cards are going to be called. But it was called a treachery. It was a treachery of some sort, and it had Surge on it. And I was like, can't get away from it. Caleb and Nate love their Surge. So I mean, it's when you're playing those sorts of games, it's the only way that the bad guy deck can have card advantage on you. I get that, but it's still funny, So
yeah. So Lord of the Rings players, you'll see a lot of commonalities between this and the Marvel LCG,
okay.
And so
is it different? Is it different enough to feel like you're in a different place?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Where Lord of the Rings requires a lot of strategizing and planning and a lot of different triggers happening, with enemies and locations in the quest. This scenario still has those things, this game, but I would say the rules itself are much more streamlined. Resources are easier to get, cards are easier to get.
Okay. So I always like to say that if Lord of the Rings was a board game, it'd be a Euro, and so this is a little easier than a card gaming Euro game, right?
Absolutely.
Like I feel like you're always cube pushing in Lord of the Rings, looking for the triggers and reading everything. And
yeah.
I like it, but that's one of the things that I like about it. I like the complexity of it. That it's
So overall, I would say it's a less complex game, but it's still very unique. You still feel like a Marvel hero when you're Spider-Man.
Do you start with one hero, or do you have three heroes to start with?
You just play one hero.
Okay, I thought I read somewhere that there were three heroes. Maybe the core set just comes with three heroes, and then you get to choose one, right? And then you try to build them up, and then you try to kill whatever's out there.
Yep, and it's a LCG, and it's playable 1 to 4 players, just like Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Right. Well, just FYI, you are actually tasked with killing Lord Alteron.
Nope, we're back to. So which scenario is this, Grant?
The Mogul Vale.
Oh, well, that's the Morgul Vale. That's not the.
That's
you
the
mean
last-
that? Oh, because we were talking about whether you have to kill him or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't able to pull up the story article, but I got a breakdown of the quest, and it's basically you kill the traitor Lord Alperon and try to catch up with Faramir's captors.
Okay. I'm trying to. I wonder what's going on with the new quest then.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
Maybe it's set just before the problems in Numenor. Who knows?
Yeah.
For the time scale.
Yeah, we'll have to crack open the new box, which is out, and read the story in detail. That's just what I heard when players were kind of talking about it, but
I have it on the way. I don't have an FLGS close by, so I have to go. I have to go online and get it.
Oh, sure thing.
So I have to wait for it. But a buddy of mine, the guy that I play with, him and I, we split some of this to get a bunch of cards. So I got
absolutely. We're all looking forward to it, all of us, I think.
Right.
Right.
I know you can't see this, Ted, because we're on a phone call, but I do want to show our viewers this thing right here. So I'm holding up right now The Road Darkens. So do you know why I'm holding up The Road Darkens, everybody?
The Road Darkens.
It's one of
box with Gandalf.
Yes, it's the box with Gandalf in it. So
are you saying that you're becoming Gandalf guy there, David?
No, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to build more decks with Gandalf. Everybody says that he's awesome to use, including our co-host Ted. So I decided to get another one, and along with all his toys, so that I can experiment with more Gandalf.
Yeah, and I've seen so a lot of Lord of the Rings players here. You know, they're doing the new competitive game.
Right.
But they're also doing just a lot of casual games. They're playing, recent scenarios from the last cycle.
Yeah.
Or they're playing favorites of theirs that they wanted to bring. Some of them were playing the Fellowship event, like the Murder at the Prancing Pony, which was a Fellowship released scenario from a Fellowship kit. And you see all types of heroes represented. You see dwarves, you see Sylvans, I've seen Noldor decks. I've seen a lot of Halden decks. He's a very popular hero this time, including myself. I have one put together, but I look around the tables playing, and I'm like, a lot of Haldens.
There's a new card in the new, not that you've gotten your hands on the new box, but there's a card in the box that's I guess supposed to really help him. Let's see if I can find it.
Yes, in the new Deluxe, A Shadow of the East, there is a new lore attachment for locations. Right. I don't specifically remember what it does, but it's a lore attachment for locations. I'm
trying to pull it up right here. Let's see. It's called Put Off Pursuit. And so you attach to the active location, and it gets +2 quest points, but then after the location is explored, you discard cards from the encounter deck until the location is discarded. Add that location to the staging area to choose a non-unique enemy in the staging area and shuffle it into the encounter deck.
Ooh, that is very good.
So you get to exchange a location for an enemy, which...
Yeah.
Or
exchange an enemy for a location.
No, exchange a location for an enemy. Right? You get to get rid of the non-unique enemy. And
right.
You put the location into play.
Yep.
Right. However we want to say that, we'll get it right.
Yep.
Everybody will see the card on the screen right over there when we talk about it. But yeah. So maybe that's one of the reasons why people... I don't know. Haldan's a pretty fun archetype to play, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he'll be more fun when he gets some more toys and they develop the woodman trait a bit more.
They may not.
I wouldn't count them out just yet. The hobbits are still getting love, and so are the dwarves.
Well, but those are main archetypes, like I think the hobbits and the dwarves are always going to keep getting more and more love. But I think
I'm still I'm still hoping they're going to flesh out the Bjorning trait.
The Bjorning trait.
Yeah, so I can make a full Bjorning archetype.
Any hints at the Bjorning archetype at GenCon, Ted?
Not that I've seen. But,
okay.
We don't know. But it's
hey,
definitely...
I can live in hope. I can live in hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, right?
Let's
talk
about one thing that I'm a little nervous about, and we just announced the latest cycle. It's called the Vengeance of Mordor, right? And then our chief game designer is also developing this Marvel Champions LCG. So this begs the question: do you think the game is on its last legs here? So
interesting question.
What do you think, Ted?
It's really hard to judge because just because the game was developed by the same developers doesn't mean it couldn't be. It might be handed off to someone else, or we see people move, to where sure the current developer for Lord of the Rings, he could move and take over Marvel, and then someone takes his place to continue.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Lord of the Rings game is out just yet, but I certainly think, and we've seen the current developer for Lord of the Rings. He helped kick off the digital version of the game for Fantasy Flight Interactive.
Right.
And even though he started that, he doesn't work on it anymore, to my knowledge.
Right. What about you, Grant? What do you think the future of LOTR LCG is?
I think that we've still got a lot of time left because of the fact the game is keep increasing every year. The amount of people that are buying, playing, and getting more people involved. The community is growing every day, basically. And I think we've still got some time left. Whether Caleb's just to help and get the Marvel LCG up and running, or whether he's taking a more active role, I don't know. I can't say. That's for Caleb to just sort out.
Right.
But I think him going over and helping Marvel is a good idea, as well as Nate French, because they started the Lord of the Rings LCG and they've getting through the teething problems that Lord of the Rings had right up until the Heirs of Numenor. So if they can avoid those same teething problems in a new LCG, then I think that's great. But I still personally think Lord of the Rings has got a long shelf life, a long time to go.
Yeah, and to throw in my 2 cents, I think that for a game like this, or for a game like LOTR, or for any game for that matter, it comes down to economics, right? So a game will lose support when there's not enough people buying it, and the way that the expansions and the adventure packs have been flying off the shelves and are sold out, and when reprints hit, they get sold out. Like, I just think that I just don't see Lord of the Rings being sunsetted anytime soon, just because it's such a wildly popular game, and I think it's the longest running LCG. I think that Star Wars was long, but they had two different. It's one and a two, and like combined that ran for a while, but it doesn't matter. This is this has been out this is 9 years now, right? So
yeah, Star Wars LCG, which I also played when it was out. I think had 6 complete cycles before they finished.
Yeah, and then you had like the Game of Thrones LCG, which had 2 versions. You had the first edition.
Oh, right.
And then
that's what I was thinking. Actually, I was thinking of the Game of Thrones, right?
Then you had the second reprint, the second edition, and I'm not sure if it's still going now.
Yep. They have events here for Game of Thrones. They have a North American Championship as well.
Right. So
Star Wars Destiny, Keyforge, all their stuff.
Keyforge. That's a game that I've been thinking about getting into. So. But so for anybody worried that the LOTR is going to, I think that the people in the community just feel like there's no way that this game is going to go anywhere. Just because I think it's still earning money for Fantasy Flight, and that's really what it comes down to. You know, as long as people are buying it, they're still going to make it and have somebody developing new content for it.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's a call on you, the listener, to go out and buy an extra adventure pack this week.
or be like David and buy 2.
Yeah, I actually am starting to get 2 of a lot of things. Because I find myself playing around with certain heroes, and I don't like to take apart decks and stuff like that. So, you know, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'll have to go get another Spirit Frodo. I don't know what I'm going to do with 2...
Conflict at the Carracks.
Yeah, 2 Conflict at the Carracks, but whatever. So, I don't know.
Just take apart the other decks. Write down the deck list. Take apart the deck, and then you can always reconstruct the deck later.
Nope.
It doesn't work like that.
That's how mine works.
Yeah. I mean, I have done it with proxies where I like put the card in, and then I'll take it out and put it in another deck, and I don't know. It's just a pain in the neck. So if I have a couple extra bucks, then that's what I do. So, yeah. And I also have found that some of my adventure packs, I've left cards or lost cards out of them. So I was trying to play the Waste of Eriador the other day, and I was like, I only have 5 cards in this in this expansion. I needed like 20 or whatever it was. I don't know. Well, what else do we have about the community? GenCon is such a huge event, so we wanted to really spend a lot of time talking about GenCon. Maybe it's best to leave, you know, the August episode for the past 2 months of gaming, because there has been some stuff. Ancient Mathoms that has been going on between Card Talk and the White Tower blog. I think, Grant, we're up to like 4 of those episodes, right?
Yeah, we've started, me and Sam, of getting the entire core set of Ancient Mathoms complete, as well as doing our Ancient Mathoms progression series.
Oh, right, you guys are doing that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've got those 3 quests done, and we're moving on to the Shadows of Mirkwood.
Right.
We've not long beat the Hunt for Gollum, and we will be doing Conflict at the Carracks soon, as well as having the first part of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, which will be covering the first 8 or 10 cards, whatever the number we've changed, from those 2 packs. That'll be coming soon.
All right, and then so on top of that, it was also episode 150 at Cardboard of the Rings. That was also kind of fun. And so there's been a lot. Maybe we'll save all of that stuff for our August recap, and then we'll do 2 months and just let this GenCon episode sit tight, right?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
You know, the October, when we record the September recap, we may have to record it when I'm in Minnesota. That may be fun, because Con of the Rings is coming up in a couple months.
Yeah,
So-
I think I'll be able to. I just got an email where I can get a ticket. So.
Oh, really? You going?
Yeah.
Ted,
Yeah,
you going?
I haven't purchased it, but I should be able to. And
Oh.
I think I only got to take 1 day off work to really go.
Yeah,
so,
it's only
which I
a
have.
Friday. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you said you're within
Yeah.
driving distance, right?
I am, and then my brother actually lives about an hour away, so I could probably even visit him or stay with him on the way up too.
Oh, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Hey, Grant, tickets are
Yep.
opening up. You want to come to Con of the Rings?
It's just across the pond.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a little swim.
Yeah, a little swim. I'll see you there.
Right,
Let's
yeah.
Start now.
Right. Okay, well, let's cut it there, and we'll probably cut that last 5 minutes out about Con of the
Yeah,
Rings, too.
I'm
but-
like, oh, did we end? I guess, but that's fine.
Right. Yeah, so we didn't end, but we will. So if you're looking for all the content from around the community, you'll have to join us next month for that, because we really wanted to bring you kind of GenCon and what GenCon was. And fortunately, our new co-host Ted is on the floor of the convention hall. He may be sleeping there tonight, which is a whole different thing. But
so the last thing that I'm actually off to now is Cardboard of the Rings. Also to gather the community together, they have an event called After Dark, which takes place at a local bar. They have sort of a room reserved underneath this bar, and people just kind of get together to order food, and some play Lord of the Rings, some play other games they picked up at the convention.
So wait, you're not doing ballroom dancing?
No, I'm not going ballroom. That ended actually during the call. The dancers are done for today at least. But there's always next year.
And they have that thing at the Slippery Noodle, right? Which is a hysterical name for a bar, a Slippery Noodle.
Yeah. We kept saying today, like, oh, just bring it to the noodle. Like, hey, I have your threat tracker. I just bring it to the noodle.
Bring it to the noodle, and that I think at that event, and so like Cardboard of the Rings has been around forever. They've been around for the life of the game. So, but I think at that event you get to see some of the first stage guys, right? Sean is still pretty active playing cards, right?
Yeah. So they've combined it. There's another podcast that covers the Arkham LCG,
right?
Which Sean from the first stage is part of. So it's a combined event between both podcasts. I want to say it's called Mythos Busters.
Yeah, Mythos Busters. And I think Ian Martin is also part of that.
Yep, a lot of other community members too that I can't name off the top of my head, but a lot of them are here. And,
people have been around the community
well.
forever and ever. So, yeah. And so it'll be good to see. So let me ask you one more question, Ted. I have to say, now that you're famous, as co-host of Card Talk, has anybody come up to you and said anything about you being on Card Talk?
You know what? I don't think anyone has specifically.
Oh, good. You're still incognito, right? So
I brought it up a few times just to kind of spread the word for some people that haven't heard of our show. But I'm usually introduced. For some of the other players, they'll be like, "Oh, this is Ted. He's from Card Talk."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I don't get a feel for how much people know who we are. It's so that's good.
Yeah. Well, this is the place to kind of spread the word and to meet more community members, and everyone gets together and to share our thoughts on the games and that kind of stuff. So it's a great place.
One of the things that I forgot to do at the very beginning of the show, which I'll do now, is to thank our latest Patreon. We have a new Patreon. His name is Phil. Phil, if you're out there, thank you so much for your Patreon donation. We appreciate it. We're going to put it right back into the show, make it totally awesome for you and all the other Patreons. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, please join us at www.patreon.com/cardtalk2018. I'll put the thing right down here so you can see it and join us, and it'll be good stuff. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username CardTalk2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at CardTalk2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.